Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third episode of the second season of the Digital Transformation Podcast. Today, we welcome our guest, Mr. Dennis Mortensen, founder and CEO at Launch Brightly and ex-founder and CEO of XAI. Welcome, Dennis.
Thanks so much for having me.
As usual, on stage with me, we have Frank and Cyril. Hello, guys.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Michele.
Dennis, we have a lot of questions today for you, and our goal of today is to discuss this fast evolution of AI that is probably one of the most hot topics into the digital transformation world nowadays. Let's start from something very, very straight and simple. What do you think about digital transformation? What is your definition, and what is your experience in this space?
Ooh, it's a good question, right? And probably more of an umbrella term than a term you can directly kind of translate. The part of that umbrella that I kind of care about are the processes that we used to do manually yesterday, mostly the processes that weren't even fun to do that we did yesterday, finding ways to automate that through technology so that tomorrow I don't have to do them and I can start to kind of focus on kind of my human creativity. So if I can transform something, however small the chore, into a machine task, that is certainly something that falls under that umbrella. But I think your definition is probably wider than that. But I think that's the small sliver that I really care about.
Okay. Do you think we have been discussing in our previous episode also the agile transformation? Do you think that these two concepts are strictly bound, that are related somehow?
I'm sure there's some overlap in that Venn diagram, but I'm not so sure that kind of umbrella terms just in general are super kind of helpful, especially in this kind of day and age for where there's the opportunity to be hyper specific and tactical, even on big projects on what you want to kind of achieve. So I tend to kind of latch on to things that are, tangible instead of speaking in generic terms. So that's just in general my kind of recommendation.
Okay. Cyril, Frank, do you have questions for our guest?
Just to go back quickly to the first question about digital transformation, in your opinion, do you make a distinction between digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation? We can often see that, in some consultancy report, and I just wanted to see if, with your background, this has grounds and means some things to you.
I do think it's of value to at least put in place some sort of vocabulary when we go from a very analog world into a more digital world. Because if we can agree on that kind of vocabulary, it just makes it easier for you and me, Cyril, to kind of move forward hand in hand on a shared agreement. And I do think perhaps digitization is a kind of separate matter of its own that might just be a stepchild to that of, say, automation. I certainly have my own understanding if I just pick those two words as being different things. If I take digital kind of transformation, well, again, it falls into this kind of idea of an umbrella term to me, for where perhaps digitization seems to be more tangible and tactical, where I take something for where, well, if I had access to this information in digital form, all sorts of opportunities arrive. Like I can do many things, super ambitious, not so ambitious. I can certainly start to imagine things that could be done. So that's certainly a term I personally like better because it's tangible and tactical to me.
Makes sense.
Makes total sense. Okay, so I'm going with the big question now. I'm gonna drop it. So you founded a company that is called was called XAI, okay? And then we read that you sold it a few years ago. The exit was huge, actually, as far as I remember. And now Elon Musk says that his next company, the new company name is gonna be XAI. What is going on?
Way back in 2013, I bought the domain x.ai, actually before we started the company, simply because if you've been in technology for long enough, there's something sexy about a single letter domain.
Yes.
The .ai TLD wasn't really as exposed back in 2013 as it is today. But hey, a single letter domain, as in, why would you not want to own that? So I acquired the domain, and hell, I could have ended up not using it for anything, but it was just so nice. Then we brought the band back together. We had sold our prior company, and we brought the band back together, got started on this meeting scheduling agent, and we called the company x.ai. I owned the domain and spent half a decade crafting this intelligent agent, and had it acquired a good year and a half ago or something like that. We always knew since day one, which you might also remember, that Elon, before he merged with PayPal, ran his company X.com. Plus, he also kind of acquired X.com some years back. So at some point, it seemed almost kind of inevitable that he would kind of cross into the kind of X territory. And it never really happened. We got acquired, and the acquirer then wanted to kind of keep their own brand, and good on them, they certainly should do that, and sold the kind of domain to a broker. And they then later figured out, it was Elon Musk who kind of bought it. They would probably have janked up the price a little bit had they known that it was him, but that's the story.
That's the whole story. That's the whole story. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in there quickly. Just stay on topic. Maybe Dennis, you can tell us a little bit more about what XAI was doing, and particularly how the technology used their differences from what we mean by AI today, what AI technology is today.
AI, again, I think if we are honest, is an umbrella term for all sorts of predictions, which you can make in all sorts of different domains using different types of technologies. So really a umbrella term that just paints a picture of predictions that were just impossible perhaps to make a decade ago or decade and more ago that we can now do today. Now, just in short, we thought back then that the pain of setting up a meeting was true and honest. Footnote, you should never start any company on the idea of you taking advantage of any new technology, because technology changes all the time, and it might not even be the right technology. So what you should start on is some idea of an error in the universe, or some customers potentially being in pain, and then you can figure out how to solve that. Sure, if you can use new clever technology, good on you, but that's not really the point. So our idea was just one for where, hey, people do not like to set up meetings. So it's just a little daily chore where some do it more. If you're in sales, you do it all the time. If you're in recruiting, you do it all the time. If you're a back-end DevOps engineer, you don't do it that often, but everybody in any setting will set up a meeting. Perhaps we can solve for that particular pain. And our attack angle was one for where we thought, because when you speak to people, their fantasy is one for where, you know what? I just want to be as old as Dennis and Cyril. And then when I'm that old, I might just get a human personal assistant. I think I won the corporate lottery. Like I spent 20 years in industry, and now I can get a human assistant called Tim. I can say, hey, Tim, set up a meeting with Frank and I in Manhattan, come 2 weeks from now for half an hour. Now, Tim is what they wanted. Tim is just expensive. If you're in Manhattan, it'll cost you like $70,000 plus overhead. Well, we can't give that to everybody, but perhaps if some clever engineers and data scientists come around, perhaps we can implement that as a machine agent, not as a human agent. So we tried to see if we could not re-implement this human agent to schedule meetings, and nothing but that, just only that. Doesn't mean that a personal assistant or an executive assistant doesn't do many other things. They do 1,000 other things, but at least the one thing where you could ask the agent in natural language what you would like done, even in your kind of funny Danish, English, poor grammar like me, what you want done. Now, there's a few kind of assumptions in that. There's the assumption, which turned out not to be entirely true. It's probably going to turn out to be, everything is true in the future. But back then, it was not entirely true. I thought that the conversational UI, footnote, so I grew up on the command line, right? So I took my CS degree on the command line, and that was pretty much the only interface if you wanted to get access to any compute. My mom probably grew up on the graphical user interface, seeing how Word works and Windows and so on and so forth. My kids probably grew up on the mobile touch UI, if that's a distinct UI paradigm of its own. And I thought a new fourth kind of distinct UI paradigm would arrive, the conversational UI, that would kind of fully democratize access to compute, where you can just say anything without being an expert. And that turned out not really to be the case. It was a little too early. We can talk about why that was, but we built that agent, and it was a dramatic endeavor. Like some of the kind of LLMs we have today, you can do pretty fantastic things. We trained on a supervised data set that we assembled, like we hand labeled 32 million-ish kind of intents and entities by hand. Like, side note, had 100 people alone only doing labeling, just that part of the team. So we did that and had the agent kind of put in place, and in the end had figured out how to fully automate the idea of a machine agent. And last quarter was best quarter, last month was the best month, last week was the best week, and then we got acquired.
This also answers the question, how AI evolved in these years, and also the application of AI evolved in these years. Okay, Dennis, so now we're gonna share some funny contents that we found on the net. Actually, not
everything is funny.
Yeah,
most of it is funny.
Most of it is funny. And I would like to start with this one that probably describes the mood of today.
AI, generative AI, AI. It uses AI to bring AI.
I love the end of it. Anyway,
yeah,
it's super funny, Cyril.
Yeah, so that was just last week indeed. When Sundar said 140 times AI in the opening speech of Google I/O. And, when I listened to your answer to the previous question, Dennis, you sound like a product guy, because you said you focused on customer pain point, etc. So I know you are a product guy, and you have built some products who answer a customer need, who deliver value to customer need. With everything that we've seen since Chat GPT has been released in November, what do you think are these pain points that Chat GPT and similar solutions on the market are feeling? What are these needs that were not answered before, that these big companies such as Google, Meta, Microsoft didn't provide a solution before?
It's funny, isn't it, that most people who are not super entrepreneurial will imagine that the new company that kills the old company looks like the old company, just a little bit better. As in, the next Facebook is Facebook with a different feed. No, it isn't. So what kills Facebook was let's call it TikTok. Whether that is what will kill Facebook or not doesn't matter, but it's the fact that it looks very different. What will kill Google, or not kill Google, but put a dent into their growth is not a slightly better sorted set of search results. It's going to be something else. Whether Chat GPT is that something else, well, it could be. I certainly think, and that whole video which I've seen is obviously funny, but no more funny than them being honestly scared that what we have might just be of yesterday, and what the needs of the customer might just be closer to what Chat GPT kind of showed us, which is that I rarely go to Google to consume what they have. Sure, it might be consumed directly on their site because they've extracted it from elsewhere, but I go there because I have a job I want done. As in, hey, I'm a programmer, I need to kind of figure out how to utilize this Foursquare API in TypeScript. Hey, I'll do a quick set of searches. I'll end up on Stack Overflow, or hey, they might even showcase this directly on the homepage of Google, but I have a job I want done. Or hey, I need just to figure out how to spell psychology because I'm Danish. I'll just type it into Google, you'll autocorrect it for me. Like, I go there because I have things I want done. I'm not necessarily searching things. That is just the mechanism with which I get my answer. Well, I think Chat GPT, certainly for a whole host of queries, going to circumvent or even going to propel me to what I want instantly, which is, hey, just give me a quick code example of this. Hey, just tell me how old, how long, how this, how that. Just give me the answer. And I think there's actually plenty of those kind of journeys we have on Google that are just probably better fitted on a Chat GPT-like kind of interface, which is why you saw 100 million people sign up in less than a couple of months, which is kind of mind-blowing that that can happen. And I'm sure even the four of us have kind of reached a point where, you know what, I wouldn't say out of the 100 things I do on Google during a couple of days that half of them went to Chat GPT, but you know what, some of them already kind of moved over, where if I really need a little code example, it's actually just easier to ask Chat GPT. If I need a little bit of a summary of a text or compression of a text or suggestion to kind of write something, it's easier to use Chat GPT. If I need kind of an explanation of a concept, instead of writing define on Google, get perhaps their little snippet or a link to an article, Chat GPT, even though it's a little scary and what's true and false, hey, you just give it to me. I kind of half understand it. I just needed the kind of summary. So I can see how I moved over a few, and then we can come back full circle. A few, that's always how it starts, right? It starts out being silly, not great. That's never going to replace Google. You blink, you look away, you look back. Shit, it ate half our business, and now it's too late. So I think they certainly woke up and are trying to figure out, well, how can we defend against this? Which is them saying, we also know how to do AI. Please remember, we're not completely silly.
And I'm going to jump to a point slightly different, which is about UI. Yesterday, I saw a very interesting survey, and basically this research was about what is the most sticky UI and the one that prefer to use. And surprisingly, ChatGPT was the best one. It was like the most sticky, the one people wanted. And what is fascinating on ChatGPT, there is no UI. There is basically an input box and a button go. That's it. And what have we done for the past 20, 30 years, let's say, with complex user interface, user experience, trying to make it like evolving all the time, trying to use the latest technology? Have we been wrong all the time? What can we learn from this ChatGPT simple UI? Is there a takeaway for you here?
So I've always been a believer, and I started a company on it. So I was willing to invest half a decade of my life into the idea that the no UI or conversational UI would be the next UI paradigm. So I'm just a big believer 10 years ago when we started, if you didn't have an agent that could go outside of what you solved, it was kind of an odd territory to be in, which is that, hey, I'm going to ask you, to do a job, but while I do that, I'm also asking you to do some other things. What I think happened with at least version 3 of Chat GPT, and probably that 3.5, which they launched as a kind of product, crossed some sort of inflection point where the output became acceptable to the degree where, no, I can now see us have a conversation on the issues or problems or things I want solved. And I think before that, you go from, like many things, it's kind of like we can go back to that self-driving car. As in, we spent now, half a century probably engineering on that. And we come very far. But if you let it loose on the streets of Manhattan, it can probably pick any number of predictions. Let's say it does 1,000 predictions a second, doesn't matter, some sort of staggering amount. And it'll probably drive 2 kilometers up the street, somewhere on Broadway, and then it'll hit a pedestrian. Okay, so it probably did 10,000 predictions, and then it only had, a pool of kind of incorrect ones, and it didn't kill the pedestrian. But it's now a territory for where it just doesn't work. Like, it's actually fantastic technology, but if you hit a pedestrian, it just doesn't work. And I think it was the same with this conversational UI for where you can't be in a almost good enough. Almost good enough is the same as not working at all. And that's kind of probably 2 types of predictions, right, you can make. There's the kind of value add predictions. What's a good example? So some years back, you would upload a photo to Facebook, and they would identify people in that image, say 3 of the 5 people are your friends, auto tag them. And when we like that, that's obviously a scary proposition in the year 2023, but hey, at some point, but that's 60% accuracy, meaning that's really a shitty prediction, but it's value add, meaning what you did is of all value. Then there's the other bucket, which I described before, which is that the very product hinges on you doing near 100% accuracy on your predictions, meaning that if you don't, the product can't exist. And I think the self-driving car, the Chat GPTs, we're kind of in a territory where, well, they're just not accurate enough, which is the same to say that product can't exist. But once you cross into that kind of territory, which I think this kind of latest batch of LLMs have done, it is now allowed to exist. So it's not that we didn't want it. I just think it's because we didn't have access to it. And you start to see all sorts of kind of new types of utilizations of this UI. And you start to see non-tech savvy people doing reasonably kind of tech savvy things on Chat GPT that just couldn't do on a Google search. Like sure, they'll get to an article with a set of examples, wouldn't even know what to do. But now, hey, they can even do some mini automation in an interface where they certainly know their pain. They can describe their pain. They can see a mini kind of version of it, right? I don't think we're entirely there yet, but they can live in this environment. So I find it very fascinating, Cyril, but I do think it's a crossing an inflection point. And I think we just entered that over the last good year or so.
Interesting.
Yeah, actually, also the bigger companies are reshaping a bit, thanks to this. This is what Cyril was introducing initially. The way I see it is that we tend to believe that sooner or later Google, Meta, Amazon, Apple will make their move. They are actually already, moving in this direction, but they will do something. They will launch something big. And then eventually, what we saw with the OpenAI will not be attractive anymore. That is the I don't know, at least in my mind, that is the basic or a standard idea that you have about the evolution of the business and the tech industry. That at a certain point the giants arrive and they launch something that is bigger and better than what you had before. But actually, what happened in the past is that many companies just died after, innovation and industrial revolution. So it might even be that some of them are in difficulty at the moment. I see that Meta actually is struggling a lot. I had the feeling during and after the pandemic that they bet everything on the metaverse. And also what we analyzed during our first episode was that they suddenly, from one day to another, started to talk only again about AI. And few years before that, there were some news about them highly investing into AI. So it seems like they are jumping from one thing to another, and it's hard to believe because it's a large, huge company. What do you think, Frank?
Before I lose the focus, I wanted to go back at the point that Dennis was making before about Google being scared and reacting this way. And one thing that I wanted to point out is that Meta, for example, now has one of the moves that is made is to release this technology as making it open source.
Open source.
The first thing that the competitors did was to say that it's not a good move. Now it makes you wonder and they are actually saying that it's not a good move because they are concerned about the potential backlash and how that can be used in wrong ways. But makes you wonder if they are just afraid that another GPT version or other GPTs can come out and take more of the shares.
Clear. And actually there is a lot is happening because we also have some headlines and the videos. Actually, we can move there eventually. This second content is also really interesting. It was just released a few days ago, I guess. This is Biden sitting with all the tech CEOs, the big tech CEOs, and discussing about the future of AI. Probably they want to understand more about it and how it should properly evolve, because Elon Musk and several others after him all stated, including the CEO of OpenAI, that is scary. It's a scary technology somehow. No, it can have some drawbacks and side effects.
Which I know has enormous potential and enormous danger. I know you understand that, and I hope you can educate us as to what you think is most needed in tech society, as well as to advance it. This is really, really important.
This is interesting for me. The first thing that I see from this video is that, of course, this is, propaganda and marketing in the way that you put it out, and show how this is formally happening, in the rooms of the White House. But on the other hand, it is really warm, the idea that the White House is taking care, of trying to understand more, learning more from whom? From the top giants of the tech industry that are working into the AI field. Of course, it is noble as intent and as a video itself that was published on Twitter. But Dennis, what do you think about it? What is the reason why this is happening?
I think we can rewind a little bit and try to imagine two possible futures. There's the version of the future that you alluded to, for where one of the major actors come out with a all-knowing agent that will dominate the market, Google search style, and it becomes the default. Or it is a future where we live with tens of thousands of individual agents, perhaps even optimized for the person, so that I get one agent to speak to another agent to speak to another agent, so that I might have a scheduling agent who sees that the meeting is in Miami, that contacts my travel agent, that sees that I need to book a hotel because it's overnight, that books my room with my hotel agent, sees that we spent some money on the company credit card, that contacts my CPA agent that's on having recorded it, make sure that I am informing HR who runs their own agent. So whatever the future might look like, and it's not black and white, but it's perhaps that fork in the road for it's one or the other. I am hoping for and rooting for and probably imagining that the future is not this one all-knowing agent, simply because these models are actually getting surely on one hand larger, but on the other hand, if you look at some of the open source versions of this, actually smaller and more compact and optimizable on a single laptop, meaning that I do think we're going to end up with hyper optimized agents that serve Dennis, or I need an agent to do something for me, and it's optimized on my data for which only I have access to. So I'm not competing against anybody. I'm just competing with work I would otherwise have to do. So that's certainly a fork in the road. So that's one scenario where we need to kind of at least try to imagine whether it's one or the other. Now, on the backdrop of this, I think most people, when they talk about it being scary, perhaps they put it into one of two buckets, right? There's the we all gonna die bucket, which is that the whole thing runs rogue. We can talk about that. I'm not sure I'm immediately convinced that that is happening tomorrow, but doesn't mean that we shouldn't apply research to it. But we can talk about that. Then there's the other one where it might wreak havoc in the job market, for where tens, if not hundreds of millions of people who had something to do yesterday might not have much to do tomorrow. Again, that sounds kind of very dramatic, but these are kind of two kind of obvious kind of dangers. I think I would spend more time on the latter. The funny thing, though, is that the latter, as in the job market, it ends up wreaking havoc on the people we thought, at least initially when we talked about automation, say 10, 20 years ago, we thought it would be all kind of factories full of robotics and blue-collar jobs and so on and so forth. But now it looks like, hey, you know what? We can actually, for a radiologist, make sharper predictions on whether you have a propensity for cancer or not. Or, hey, a dentist, I can make sharper predictions on whether you need to kind of have that filled or not. Or programmers, shit, I can write a function probably with better testing and coverage than you can write yourself if you're a junior kind of programmer. Like, damn, it ended up coming for the white collar jobs. So I think that's perhaps the bucket I would be kind of more worried about. Having said that, and I know I'm just kind of naively optimistic about the future. It's just how I want to live. Whenever you get something in abundance, it tends to just create a new lust for that. It's not like, oh, well, now that we have an abundance of something, then things will change. No, we tend just to exhaust it. Like, well, if you look at the amount of compute available to each one of us today versus just 10 years ago, it's staggering. That should suggest that there would be sold less. No, we sell even more compute today, even though we have even more access to it. So just because we can do more, I don't think there's going to be, I don't know, less radiologists or less programmers. I just think they'll be able to do more and more sophisticated things.
We will now. We will now also listen to Gary Vee, that has quite of a similar idea, in his mind, and actually points out a couple of potential evolutions of the human being that are interesting. But before going there, Cyril, are you more for the dystopic future, or do you see something a little more brighter in front of us?
I'm super optimistic. As I said, could be me just being beyond naive. I just haven't seen kind of any kind of point in the past for where we go from, friction and lesser access to abundance and more access, end up in a dystopian kind of future for where, now more people get access to information because we can print books, and that gave us a much worse version of the future. Not really. Sure, there'll be some sort of potentially even decade-long kind of semi-chaotic setting, but we're probably going to be, I would want us to be better off. Again, believing in it can make it so, or if enough of us believe in it, we will make it so. Sure, Will we know what is true or false tomorrow? Because any picture, any image, any audio, any text can be, immediately fabricated at high quality in the moment, perhaps even in real time, where you wouldn't even know, you know what, we'll solve for that. Like, again, naively. So I'm looking forward to it.
I see your point. I also want to hear Cyril and Frank's opinion. Cyril, what do you think?
I don't have a definitive opinion on this because I think it's very sketchy at the time to have something. But lately, Goldman Sachs released a report where they said that basically 300 million jobs are going to be disrupted by Chat GPT or the similar tools. And we are not just talking, about radiologists or blue collar in car manufacturing, for example. Technically, right now, we can almost automate any kind of manufacturing, but the public is not ready yet. That's why in Western countries, we don't have fully automated manufacturing. What is going to be challenging is for fast developing countries or emerging economies, Kenya, India, Philippines, etc., is how fast will they be able to create new jobs versus the destruction of jobs brought by AI. And in a sense, for developing countries, North America, Western Europe, we can see the benefits of, having additional capacities with radiologists, oncologists, etc., to use this technology to make, faster diagnostics, etc. But for some other economies which are not that advanced yet, will the rate of destruction be higher than the rate of new creation job? I think this is really my concern right now. Well, not my concern because there's nothing I can do, to be honest. But the impact will be very different depending on what stage your economy is. That's
So
my...
Here's the optimist counterpoint to that. And again, it's not that I don't share any of the worries attached to where we might be headed. I do, but I want to at least try to find the light in the future that we could live in and kind of at least run towards that. So we have seen many times some of the less developed economies kind of circumvent certain steps in the evolution of technology, meaning that pick, Kenya, who will actually have not the backdrop of landlines that we have here, but almost went immediately to a mobile network. Didn't have the robust kind of banking backdrop that we have here, went almost immediately to mobile pay. As in, there's certain kind of versions for where they will not be penalized, but given they don't have the legacy which we are having to deal with, they can just circumvent and spring into the future and land in a place for where, we have all these white collar jobs, we need to kind of reimagine because we put in place all these because we're good at running very large, reasonably well organized organizations in the West or in Europe or somewhere else. But they might just be able to kind of circumvent that. So that is, again, a possibility or a version of the future. Doesn't mean I don't share your worry, Cyril, but I want to kind of see, at least the light here.
Yeah, clear. I know that Frank has a quite strong opinion, and in the meantime, he was also sending me. Let's watch this one first, and then I will share the blog post with you. So let's move to which one? This mini game with the Chat GPT. This is also interesting. It's quite famous. There are so many applications of Chat GPT, but this guy is using it in a way that could develop software. Let's see.
Can Chat GPT replace your job? Let's see.
A simple tic-tac-toe game with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Let's see. So let's create the board. I like it. All right, let's test it out now. So get all the squares. Wow, let's go. We need to now add a function to calculate and display the winner. Oh, no way. check for winner. Okay, now let's add this. All right, well, boom. Oh, player win. The button and function reset the game. Come on. Oh, and there's but boom, reset. Shall we take it further? Let's take it further. Style the board to look like Chat GPT, baby. Let's go. Oh, there's even a hover pointer. What? Oh my god! Wow, so good. And you can reset. I'm scared for my job. And so should you. Let me know down below what else you want me to create with Chat GPT.
So this guy says, should I be, worried about my job?
Yes.
What do you think, Frank?
I see a lot of comments below this video, and most of the people are saying the same thing. So they're all sharing the idea that no, because he is a developer, so he's clearly able to talk to ChatGPT. Well, first of all, maybe some words, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. Okay, that's okay. But as Dennis was making the examples in the beginning, you're going to be able eventually, and even now, probably there are some software that let you do it. Just say, just make me a game, a tic-tac-toe game that works in a browser, and it will do it. You don't need to specify the technology. You don't need to be a developer for that. So anybody can do it. So for these simple things, you can already do it. I myself, as a developer, have changed and shifted the way I work in a way that, for example, I don't search on Google anymore when I have some
no more Stack Overflow.
Yeah. And I think we are at that point in time where it can really make your, not make your job easier and faster, but make you a better developer, if you want to, in any field really, or a content writer or anything. In my case, it helps me because if you know how to use it now, you can just understand things that you could not understand before. It's an open blog. It's like a person that you can talk to, and if it explains things you don't understand something, you can actually say, hey, wait a second, just tell me a bit more about that. So it can really make you a better person. But this is now. In the future, as a product owner, you can just say, I need this feature. Do it. I see this happening.
It is definitely evolving too fast, really fast, in the way that no one could predict the difference between GPT 3.5 and 4 was so big.
And the difference is very big. I can tell you a list in this developer field, it's very big difference. It makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. In our case, it happened, Dennis. I'm going to tell you what some cases that we had some open positions for Swift and Kotlin developers. This is quite of a for everyone. This is the technology that you use on iOS and Android when you are coding natively. But that was something meant to bring just a bit of expertise and tweaks and and small coding on an application that actually was totally cross-platform, that you could code with another language. We definitely didn't need any more these profiles. Why? Because we could just understand how to tweak, how to change some stuffs by accessing the knowledge, of the AI, and that is impressive. It is already making an impact. We had some guests in the previous episodes that even told us that this is not a 5 years journey. This is a 12-month journey. So it's gonna change totally in 12 months. Again, I'm really interested in understanding your opinion, and also let's comment a bit this video, because I think there are a lot of other points to probably touch.
I am again optimistic. So when I took my CS degree, first semester we did assembly as the primary programming language, and had machine code as another subject matter, so we at least understood what would be kind of compiled from assembly to machine code. And later kind of semesters we would do things in C, which we thought at that moment was a language so high level that it felt almost like cheating. Like, yes, let's look at what C compiles into machine code. We'll look at the machine code and say, I could hand optimize that. That's kind of lame. Then, of course, we've had many kind of levels of abstractions over the last couple of decades, for where most people today doing anything in software engineering wouldn't touch assembly or machine code or write anything in C really, or compile much of anything. And if we think of this just as another level of abstraction, just allows us to do more with less, which was always the case, where I want to do more with less. Like any library that you use, any kind of service you use, any kind of API that you use is something which you either chose to kind of outsource or abstract away. So I do think this is a really obvious, visible step on that kind of curve of abstractions, and probably doesn't compare much, which was kind of a much smoother curve for where we are today. And I do think on that curve, there's a jump here, surely. But there's two things. One, I believe that this is a level of abstraction where I'm not saying we're going to end up coding in natural language, but bordering on it, right? That's the one part. The other part is I'm yet to hear any organization tell me, you know what? We have too many engineers on our team. Like they're always kind of short of engineers, short of being able to kind of push the amount of features they would like to push. Either they don't have the finances to hire another 10 engineers, or they simply can't find them. So if anything, this is one for where there might just be more code output having access to this from the existing engineers in the world, or even by introducing more engineers into the world, because you don't need the same level of expertise as you used to, because we have a new level of abstraction. And again, people will just absorb that, for where I just want more of what I couldn't get yesterday, which I can now get today. So this is not the death of the programmer.
Yeah, of course. I totally agree with that. It's gonna enhance, the possibilities of each software developer. It's not gonna, we studied assembly as well in the university, and now it's one of the most required jobs out of there, because it is considered a legacy skills, so they pay a lot if you know assembly, and assembly is not easy. So so that's the point. And then again, I also see on a very more granular level some agile practices that usually you conduct into the software development life cycle with a lot of effort and struggle to be totally optimized by AI. Like, for example, the quality assurance process, like, for example, the code reviewing process, itself. It's not just about, smoke sanity testing or user acceptance testing, but also regression testing that is extremely painful, and that takes a lot of time. It can be done by AI. Code reviews could be done very easily. I mean, I see this, I'm talking about this since 5 years now. This is very easily doable with the AI. Okay, Cyril, you shared with us this wonderful content from World Economic Forum. Do you want to comment it a bit? What is this about, Cyril?
Yes, so it's a very recent report from the World Economic Forum. And what we have here is basically, based on the research, what are going to be the 10 fastest growing jobs in the world, mainly modern economies versus declining jobs, also mainly modern economies. So it joined back to what we discussed earlier with Dennis, about looking for the light, they say it this way, versus, I don't know, maybe something more factual on something how we maybe a bit more. And what we can see, it's exactly the kind of white collar jobs with kind of low level qualifications, basically, which are going to be the fastest declining. So office jobs, mainly moving paperwork, type of bureaucracy type of work, minimum of control, which is basically what it is here. It's no added value. I don't want to offend anyone who is listening, but it's kind of no added value job, except for the legislators and officials. But it's very basic work that can be easily kind of automated. On the other side, of course, a fast-growing job, and this is why it's fascinating. They are all science and technology jobs related. Even farming is going to be a big tech job. It's not about farming anymore. It's going to be able to maintain your army of drones to take care of your crops. And as a fintech engineers, we're going to change, the way finance and banking works. And you can see that every large industries are going to be impacted by this.
I agree with Cyril, which is that the picture here from the World Economic Forum seems true and honest, very kind of plausible. Sure, we'll see these kind of items shuffle around, be renamed, but they are kind of directionally correct. And at some point, which sounds rude and brutal, we should be happy that the sometimes sad, repetitive, no value add jobs disappear. It might not be an ill, it might just be a moment of success. Sure, the very people who are getting displaced will not see it as a moment of success in that on that day where they're being let go, but in the long term, for kind of humans to flourish, I think we'll be better off because of it. And I'm not saying that come 2 years from now, the kind of idea of the 15-hour work week will arrive and we're finally at the destination. But I'm not saying these are necessarily positions that are worth fighting for to preserve. As in, we just didn't have any other way, so we put them in place and some human sits there, not because they're looking forward to be a postal service clerk and that was their kind of childhood dream, but they need to pay rent. So they took that job. So I'm, again, optimistic. And yes, accept the fact that there might be a chaos for a little while as we kind of progress to the other side.
Yeah, because the natural evolution of AI is robotics, and then with the quantum computing, in my opinion, is going to explode and become really bright. So we are still into this how do you call it, tech punk scenario in which we are trying to adapt AI to the world of today, but as soon as even the paradigm of the computing will change and embrace the quantum era, then it's going to be totally different, in my opinion. Robotics is going to rise, and I'm also optimistic, and I would love to imagine that our future will be our own, farm, with the robots growing vegetables for us. And what the human being will be in need of? Human machine interfaces and interaction. So the user interfaces will never die in that direction, and the user experience will be actually enhanced a lot. So there is actually a lot to develop in that direction. Okay, so I know that we are running out of time, so I wanted to probably drop some headlines from New York Times, CNN, BBC, and etc., and discuss it briefly with our guest. Then for our audience, don't worry, there is going to be a second part of the AI episode because AI is so big, so we will keep discussing it. Let's start from let's start from this one. This we already discussed. Biden meets Microsoft, Google CEOs on AI dangers. We also know that sometimes newspapers use these headlines to make news. Just for that. Let's look at. This one, BT to slash workforce by up to 55K before 2030, with AI replacing 10,000 jobs. This is from today or 2 days ago?
Yes, I think it's a couple of days old, yes.
And
living in the UK, I can understand why BT is going to cut some jobs. Firstly, landline is dead. So basically you have a entire part of their business, which is, I don't have a landline anymore. It's go through my fiber that has been, installed last year. So landline, copper lines doesn't exist anymore. So of course, it's gone. After, BT is quite, it's a company which have also a lot of IT services, especially around cybersecurity. It's quite a large organization. After, I don't know exactly how the 55,000 jobs are going to be cut across, geographies and different parts of the organization. But I'm not surprised, when a large part of your business has gone.
90% of my skills are now worth $0. This is Kent Beck, the creator of extreme programming and test-driven development, one of the agile, founders. And here he says, I've been reluctant to try Chat GPT. Today I got over that reluctance. Now I understand why I was reluctant. The value of 90% of my skills just dropped to 0. The leverage for the remaining 10% went up 1,000 times. I needed to recalibrate. And this is Kent Beck. Okay.
I love this statement. This is a very astute picture of where we're headed. And I think this is exactly the right way to think about it, which is that Kent is not in despair. Surely he just understands that those things which I did yesterday for where I got educated on it and it was of value, now the machine can do it, doesn't mean that I can't do anything. I can apply some human ingenuity that the machines can't yet apply, or even make decisions where the machines are at a fork in the road. So I think that's just a very strong backdrop. I actually really like that.
Frank also found this one. This one is also interesting. Microsoft says new AI shows signs of human reasoning. A provocative paper from researchers at Microsoft claims AI technology shows the ability to understand the way people do. Critics say those scientists are kidding themselves. This whole article was about the idea that, and this is the New York Times, by the way, that Microsoft is somehow very close to have an AI that will reason like a human brain, they were stating. So this is also, tells us a little more about how fast this is going.
It's hard to even
imagine.
Think, yes, because what does it mean, reasoning for a human? Like, how do they know that they are reasoning? Like, do they have an exact definition of that? That it's hard to say. So that's I understand the critics.
I think we're talking about singularity here. Are we that close, Cyril, Dennis?
That's far beyond my knowledge.
So just so we're all on the same page here, because it's very easy to mystify AI under some sort of umbrella term, especially if you're not super technical or didn't spend last weekend kind of building your own kind of neural network. So Chat GPT or any of the existing kind of LLMs out there are just autocomplete. Like, you can use words like reasoning, common sense, being conscious, and so on and so forth, kind of very grand terms. But come the end of the day, they're making a prediction for what next word, given the prior words, do I believe is the most likely in this string of words. That's the end. That's the technology. And for some reason, it just works extremely well, beyond imagination, at scale. But the cat will, and that next word in that sentence, that's it. That's the end of the idea of the technology. As in, I need to find the next word in this list of 3. Sure, it becomes more kind of sophisticated for where, hey, I was trained on all of the words of the internet, and I haven't seen this string of words before, so what do I do? Then we apply some different ways to kind of come to that conclusion. But it is only an autocomplete. That's what it is. So when your mom or other folks look at it, I'm not so sure I would immediately go to the it now has reasoning. No, it just means that the autocomplete is ever stronger and better than yesterday. And what I do think is happening, if anything, is that the research we've done on what we are as humans over the last many decades, last century perhaps, has kind of come almost to a conclusion for where, well, the human mind with whatever kind of biological mechanism that put in place the existing weights that we have, it is no more than that. That is what it is. And those weights, if applied to some LLM, will spit out things that are very similar. It means just that we've now again crossed into a place for where what it spits out is very much aligned to what we think would be a good kind of next set of words. Then we can go apply all sorts of ideas of what those things mean, as in, what did Cyril really mean when he said that? And was that a kind of borderline insult? Or is he happy? Is he sad? Is he many things? But I'm just very kind of separated to those terms. And I really just think of these LLMs as autocomplete. That's what they are. The autocomplete is just very good at doing what it does at scale. And I can now assign ideas to it as if it were some sort of entity. Like we saw that all the time, by the way, with our agent, where people will have all sorts of emotional kind of responses to it and create all sorts of kind of happy, sad, angry, so on and so forth type things in that conversation, but they were imagined. And I think this is the same here, where
totally agree. It became commercial now, the AI, but it has been a topic for so many years, and we developed 2 years ago an AI that in the neuroscience field allows you to curate 100 times faster the data, you know, and that just didn't yet become you know, commercial and that famous, but come on, people have been working on machine learning and deep learning for so long now. And even this is something that I wanted to say before, you know, AWS, Azure, GCP, they all offer AI services on the cloud since 5 years now, 4 years now. So come on. Okay, so we are unfortunately running out of time, but I wanted to thank you, Dennis, for being here with us today in this fantastic episode of where we discussed AI among the space of digital transformation. I also want to recommend our audience to follow Dennis on LinkedIn and on the other social media for the evolution of his activities. And I want to thank you, Cyril and Frank, for being always wonderful co-hosts with me. And I hope that you enjoy the show, and you will come back to us next week for the 4th episode. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
thanks so much for having me. Cheers.